would scare me. Anyway, who wants to talk about onboarding and Google Forms and stuff like that? Way more exciting.
Great, Dennis.
And by the way, in light of the current climate and the fact that in 97 and Up, we've been having some detailed discussions about helping people get set up working remotely, because obviously more people are now going to need to be able to do that. I scheduled next week's Bulletproof Bookkeeping webinar, which is Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. On the first, and what I'll probably do is a series on tools for working remotely. So we're going to do a bit of an overview on Wednesday of that. You know, we've got, as those of you who are in 97 and Up already know, we're working collaboratively on a kind of big master outline on the subject, covering a very broad range of things that we'll touch on, including some really interesting stuff, I think. You know, even down to a section on, you know, what could go wrong, right? So I'm excited to start that, and I'm going to start it myself. I'm encouraging everybody else to do it, because a lot of us sitting here know how to do it. Greg and Josh, you guys are in 97 and Up, you know how to do it. And those of you who are non-video participants who are in 97 and Up, you all know. I'm encouraging all of you to go out there and write blog posts, do Facebook Lives, do whatever you can to help people. Obviously, as we speak, we're using one of the key core products, which is Zoom, which is to me the way to do remote web conferencing, right? Just like we're doing right now. This is a web conference. We're just doing it in the form of a live Zoom. And if you have the Zoom webinar product, you can go live on Facebook like I've done here. So, you know, definitely food for thought. And I hope you'll join me and tell others to join me on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, where I'll start getting into, you know, a little bit of a drill down on some of the tools. One of which could certainly be, you know, Google or G Suite, which is obviously the engine behind Google Forms. And I'll share my screen and kind of show you. I'm going to actually start this. Let's delete this. Move to trash. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And, you know, we're talking, the onboarding process is a classic use case, I think, especially because I think a lot of people still struggle with this. You know, especially if you have a newer bookkeeping service and you've never done it before, but even a lot of people who I talk to who are very experienced still kind of struggle with how to outline and define and clearly lay out the onboarding process. But I think it's fair to say that one of the first things we'll need to do in any onboarding process is gather information from the prospect who's now about to become a client, right? Which is why forms make so much sense. And of course, the question's going to come up as to security, right? So we should just address that elephant in the room real quick. With Google Forms, you have to be clear. There's two sort of worlds when it comes to Google, right? There's the free Google world that comes with any Gmail account, right? And that I can't promise you is secure, right? Because it's free. They're not going to put a whole lot of infrastructure into a free service. But then there's G Suite, which is a paid Google universe, right? And I use the word universe because there's a lot that goes inside of that when you have a paid G Suite account. Of course, there is, and if I'm saying Google a lot, I'm going to trigger everybody's Google Assistant, including my own, on every single device. I'll try and be careful about that. But the Google universe really, it includes a broad range of things. Of course, we're using the Gmail client for our email, but we're using it for email with our own domain, right? Hang on a second. Let me jump into the participants queue here. Greg, poof, you're a co-host. You are now in charge of letting people in. And by the way, if you're here live, feel free to interrupt me, especially if you have questions, but even if you just have a comment or something. Marriott says, I'm so lost on the White Castle conversation. Is that like Howard Johnson's? Google it, Marriott. You'll see. White Castle is a phenomenon. It's nothing like Howard Johnson's. It's its own thing. It's its own entity. Kind of like Google is its own entity, right? So the Google universe includes a wide range of things, one of which is a Forms product, right? Google Forms. So, because the question came up recently in one of our Zooms, somebody asked, well, is Google Forms secure? And I said, well, it depends. If you're using Google Forms with a free Gmail account, probably not. But if you're using Google Forms with a paid G Suite account, then what you can do, and I always say this, but I'm going to keep saying it because there are still people who don't know this. If you Google any app and the word security next to it, you will likely find the security page for that app. So G Suite is what we call it when we're talking about a paid Google account, right? And sure enough, it's there at gsuite.google.com/security. Yep, my Google Assistant is going nuts this morning. And if you scroll down far enough on this page, you will see all the lovely certifications that they have, right? ISO is bank encryption. The thing that always grabs me is the fact that it's HIPAA compliant. So I love when people say, oh, it's not secure. And it's like, really? Because the medical profession seems to think it is, right? And then, of course, the AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the sort of governing body of the accounting profession, it's got their seal of approval here, right? The SOC reports. And this is a FedRAMP, I think, which I think is the FINRA certification, if I'm not mistaken. FINRA meaning Securities and Exchange Commission, stock market, that sort of thing. So anyway, if there's still any question as to whether or not G Suite is secure, rest assured, it's secure. It's as secure as it can be in terms of certifications, right? Does it mean it's impossible to hack? No, nothing is completely free of being hacked, right? Some of what we would expect to be the most secure systems in existence have been hacked. So nothing is ever going to be sort of permanently and officially bulletproof and, and incapable of being hacked. But we try to do the best we can to get the most secure stuff in place that we can use, right? Based on what we have access to. And here we have access to the certifications that are issued by governing bodies like the AICPA, HIPAA, and so on. And so that's what we have to go on in terms of trusting security, all right? Now, once you have a Google account, and assuming you're logged in, you log in through your browser, right? If you do, as with any sort of native Google Doc format, if I do forms.new, sheets.new will get you an open spreadsheet in Google Sheets. Docs.new will get you an open Google Doc for word processing, right? Really cool. So you just open up Chrome, and poof, you're in. I'm just looking at the chat. Pandora says it's as secure as you can figure it. I encourage anybody that signs up for G Suite to take the time to configure the security features so it'll be as secure as possible. Sure. And of course, it's as secure as you are careful with your password information, right? Many breaches are based on the fault of the users who are careless with their passwords. My favorite thing, and I'm shocked that I still see this day and age, on the rare occasion I'm actually in a business's office, I love seeing little sticky notes on people's monitors with their passwords on them. That's just hilarious to me. Like, really? Anyway, so it's secure. And yes, there are lots of security settings that you can play with, much of which has to do with how it's sort of handled internally. Right? In terms of somebody hacking in and getting access from the outside to your data, again, it's secure. But any app, you should review all the security settings. You should, if you haven't done so in a while, you should go through your Facebook security settings and make sure that you have your privacy settings set up the way you want. Facebook has been notorious over the years for, rolling out updates that kind of kick you out of certain, settings that you might have set before. Things that you might have set to private suddenly go public or whatever. Let's see. Okay, so that's the security question. I wanted to make sure that I addressed that sort of elephant in the room, right? So now we're talking about onboarding, right? I don't have time in the less than hour that we have here to go through like the whole process. I do have a course on the subject, which if you're interested, email me, ping me on Facebook, and I'll direct you. I'll send you in the right direction. That goes in depth into this stuff. But there's one main thing I wanted to show today, just to give you a sense of how far you can take it, specifically with Google Forms. And what I'm going to show you is unique to Google Forms. I don't know of any other form tool that will let you do this. So the first thing we want to do is let's start with the title of the form, right? And we'll call this client intake, whatever you want to call it, okay? And you can put a little description here. I'll skip that for now. Now over here on the right, you have like a little toolbar, right? So you can add a question, you can import questions, You can add a title and description, which we kind of just did. You can even make it look pretty with images, and you can even embed videos. But here's what I want to really focus on here is where I can create sections, right? So the first section I might call, contact info. Okay. Then let's add another section, and we'll call this entity info, right? And then I'm going to add a third section here, and you'll see where I'm going with this. I'll call this stakeholders or something like that. You'll see where I'm going with that. So let's go back up here. And in section 1 of 4, client intake, we'll add a question. Probably the first thing we want is the name, right? And you have to decide if you want separately first name and last name. I usually do, because you're again, we're going to use Zapier at some point, maybe to use this information to go set up the new client in QuickBooks Online. So it's easier if you just have them enter their first and last name separately, so you can parse those pieces of information separately. If not, you'll have an extra step in the Zap to divide up the name, and that's assuming somebody doesn't throw a monkey wrench into the mix by giving you their middle name somewhere, right? So, and it's just easier to me. Do first name, last name. Once I have something like this, and Google, as you can see, is pretty smart. As soon as I title the question, it starts to kind of figure out what the rest of the information should look like. Like it knows, all right, if I'm asking for a name, it's going to be a short answer question type, right? In this drop down, I have lots of different formats for the kinds of information I can gather, right? It's really not just questions. Remember, this is about gathering information from clients. So if I go over here to this ellipse, first of all, we want this required. Over here, I can simply duplicate it. And then, of course, this is going to become last name, right? So it makes it really easy to start banging this out quickly. Now, before we say, oh, let's get an email, something you should know about Google Forms is it kind of has the email thing built into it. And that's right here. So what I did very quickly there is up here where the gear icon is. If you go into settings, you're just going to check off this option, and you can check off this and let them decide if they want a response receipt. You know how when you fill out a form, it'll email you the confirmation and show you the information you filled out. This is for the user. I don't imagine, I can't think of any scenario in which I would not want to collect the email address of the person filling out the form, especially in the onboarding intake process, right? So, and the rest of this is really just if I'm using this internally, where I can restrict it to just users within my organization and so on. And then I always check this off down here where the respondents can edit after they submit. In case they get that confirmation and realize, oh crap, I had a typo in the phone number or something, this means they'll be able to go back in and just edit their entry. But we probably don't want to check this off. We don't want people to see each other's responses, right? So I'll save that. So you don't need to create a field for email. You just build it in through the settings, and obviously that's done because it follows pretty logically, I think, that pretty much everybody's going to want to collect email addresses in almost every case, right? Unless you're truly doing something where you're collecting information anonymously. Okay, so notice over here, it has this choice where after section 1, I can start creating like a sort of navigation tree within this intake, right? So right here at the end of the section, the assumption is we want to go to the next section, right? But I can jump around if I want to. So that's one thing I want to make sure, and this is what I'm talking about, that I don't ever see in any other sort of form building tool. I'm not saying it's not out there. I've just never seen it out there on any other product besides Google. So that's one part of what I wanted to show you, but let me show you where this gets even more interesting. The contact info, you can figure out what to do from here, right? We already have their email. We're going to want their phone number and physical address and all that good stuff, right? But let's say now we get into the entity info, right? And let's add a multiple choice question here. So what kind of entity are you, right? You could probably word that a little better. But then we'll put S Corp, right? C Corp. C Corp is really just a corp, but just to distinguish. Partnership. And we can even kind of put the form numbers in here, right? 1120 S. Oops, didn't want to do that. 1120 1065. And then we can put sole proprietor. proprietor, I hate spelling this word, proprietor, form 1040, right? So let's just leave it there. You can figure out how to add more choices, obviously. But what I love about this is when you use a multiple choice question like this, what I can do, first of all, this needs to be required, and we can add an option because sometimes I've learned people just aren't sure. So we'll put not sure. Okay. And so that will make that one of the options, right? But now what I can do is I can choose this option here. So at the bottom right of this question, you click this ellipsis and I choose go to section based on answer. So this way the answer they provide drives exactly where I want them to go from here. Because once they've chosen, if they're a C Corp, there might be a different series of questions that I want to ask them versus an S Corp versus a partnership and so on, right?
Seth, could you also have them go to another question, not necessarily another section? Could you
Well,
do it?
let's see what the choices are, right? So what I would, if not, what I would say is we set up the sections accordingly, right? So we,
Right.
but so yeah, it's only, you can only choose to go to different sections, right?
Okay.
So for an S Corp and probably a C Corp, I'd want to go straight to the stakeholders. And actually, since I know that's where I'm sending people who have a corporation, then what I'll probably do is rename this to, instead of stakeholders, we'll do corporation. I can't type. Right? And because then what I want, it's not even cooperation, it's corporation. And it's not even spell checking properly for me. The
You can't
Google
figure out what
gods
the
are
hell you're
frowning
trying
on
to
me.
write.
What's that?
You can't figure out what you're trying to write, whether it's corporation or
Or
cooperation.
cooperation, or yeah, or maybe cooperative corporation, or an incorporated cooperation, or something. All right. Anything interesting in the chats or the feed? Nope. Just people joining. Charlie Karn joining from the UK. Hello, Charlie. Katrina, Laura, good morning. James Doty, good to see you, sort of. White Castle. Okay. Now, one of the things we'd want to do, there's obvious stuff. We probably want to collect their, their tax ID number, whatever. But one of the first things I think of that I want them in this part is let's add a new question. And I looked at this. I wish there was a way to do like fill in, like a form within the form, but there's not. So what I would do at this point is do a paragraph type answer and say, please list all shareholders and percent of ownership. And one of the key reasons I need to know this is I need to know how to set up the equity section in the chart of accounts for the company, right? So this is important information to gather right up front. Okay, and then, and again, you probably could keep it generic and keep it simple, but also for a partnership, there may be other implications, other types of information I'd want to gather. So I might create another section here and call it partnership. And by the way, this is where you have to be careful that if somebody landed here, right, over here, I have to make sure it's never going to continue the next section, which means going back to this question, I have to make sure each one of these answers is configured to go somewhere other than the next section, because in this case, the next section is the partnership info, right? And so over here, you could add in all the questions you need to gather whatever information you need because it's a partnership. I think this is also going to be especially useful for those of you who have tax practices and need different types of information for setting clients up for the different types of forms you're going to need to file for them. Right, Josh? I got the thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, so I mean, that's the basic gist of this is, we want to be able to create this sort of routing in the form. And I think it's worth taking the time to be detailed, right? Like the next time I were to set something like this up, I would probably spend a good few hours developing this. In fact, I might even go to some kind of a mind mapping tool to outline what the flow should look like, because that'll make it a lot easier once I get into Google Forms to get it all set up. You can even use something like Dynalist and just use the bullet points to so you can kind of throw the questions down and then organize them and decide what really needs to go where, right? Let's see. James says, good morning, though it's already 4:30 in the afternoon in Berlin, Germany. James is in Germany. I didn't know that.
Hey,
Good to
Seth,
know. Yeah?
the only limitation that I can see with this one, because I love the Google and I like the forms.
And Google
But
loves you.
thanks. But what I want is clients to be able to upload things or to, connect, like do something, but I haven't been able to find that. Am I missing something?
You are, because there's a file upload right here.
Son of a gun.
Yep. The only caveat to this is you have to specify where that file is going to go. The default is it just goes into your My Drive folder, right? So it says files will be uploaded to the owner's Google Drive, responsible required to sign into Google when file upload questions are added to a form, meaning they have to have a Google account.
Yeah.
That's for security, right?
Yeah.
So it will require that they have some kind of a Gmail account when you want to do that.
So that won't work.
Yeah, it will definitely create some friction.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking for tax practice, right?
Yeah. So what you might do then is give them a link to, like, Box handles this really well for collecting files, box.com. So just instead of giving them this, just give them a URL.
Can you put a URL in there?
I believe you can, because let's see. Here's what I might do is it could create some confusion. No, you know what you could do? You could put it in the description, right? So let's say for some reason I wanted it. Let's get rid of this. There's the trash can. Okay, so let's just go to the top for a minute. And let's say we just want it in the general client intake, like for them to upload files. You can put it in the description, right? Or this is the overall form. Whereas here's entity info. You can put it right here in the description. Let's test if it actually renders. So let's go into box.com for a minute. Because I really, of all the file sharing apps, I love the way Box handles it. It gives you, and it didn't used to have this, but I've been using this a lot lately because it's really nice in the way that it gives you the ability to set up a link that only allows people to upload files. They can't see what's in the folder. They can't access anything. They can just upload stuff. Oh, wonderful.
ShareFile does that too.
Yeah. Yep. And because Google Drive, you can't really do that. You really, you have to give them access to a folder. Oh, come on, guys. Make it easy for me.
It's for your security, Seth.
I know. I know. All right, so let's just create a new kind of dummy folder. The only thing I don't like is they don't let you organize the folders people have shared with me, the gray ones. Kind of annoying. All right, so my client's stuff. So we go into my client's stuff, and this ellipsis, file request. Okay, and then share this link to request content from others. Copy, you can embed it in your website. Back to here, please upload documents here. Now let's see if that renders as a link. Let's preview it.
I have a question, Seth.
Uh-huh.
Is there a way to do a mathematical equation in Google Forms? I haven't figured out how.
I don't think so.
Yes, I didn't think so either, but.
Oh, crap. Of course, I didn't put it in the first section, so let's fix that. We're in section 3. I want to be in section 1. Fine, we'll put it right in the forms description. I just want to test if it'll render as a link, right? Go away. Yeah, it does. It's clickable, which is brilliant. And now they can just drag and drop. Just don't call it my client's shit. So that's beautiful. The only other thing I might suggest is taking this URL and running it through like Bitly or something, right? Because it's just
And one thing, how will you know which client uploaded what?
That is an excellent question. So you probably have to provide some instructions and encourage them to name the documents in some way that identifies it. Otherwise, you're going to have to open up every document to figure out what belongs to who.
In box.com, you can set the parameters so that you require them to put their email address in. And so then you would know at least what client it is right there.
Oh,
yeah.
Require, yeah, there we go. You're so
Perfect.
good, Tiffany.
Okay.
You're hired.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, so then I assume somehow it'll associate their email address with their file. I haven't played with that much. The way I usually do this is I have a separate folder for a client and I give them the link so I know because of what folder it's in, who it belongs to. I've never actually used it in this exact way. But what I would do is let's go, okay, got it. Yeah, cookies and all that. Let's log into Bitly real quick. I want to show you something cool you could do with Bitly while we're on the subject. And while we're waiting, I'm just looking at the chat. Matthew says we love share file, no math in Google Forms, but Cognito Forms you can. So whose question was that about formulas? Josh or Courtney?
Yeah, that was
That
me.
was Josh.
That was Josh. So I guess Cognito Forms lets you do formulas. I mean, you can, if you're just collecting information from somebody and then the formula can be performed after the fact, then you can do that with Google Forms, because remember, the results of Google Forms can be configured to go into a Google Sheet. So if they're having, like, let's say they indicate in one of the fields the number of dependents they're going to be claiming, right? You can put a formula in the results Google Sheet that does some kind of an operation on that, right? Like you can take the standard deduction times that number, let's say, whatever. So you can put columns in the Google spreadsheet that's getting the results that will perform calculations on other data that they've submitted, but you can't put a formula directly in the form. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wanted the result to reduce in front of the person filling out the form.
Yeah. No, we even tried that once. We were helping one of our 97 and Up members with I think it was Lisa Voss, with a very detailed Google sheet that she had been working on. We kind of converted it into a form, and we were trying to do that very thing. But yeah, there's no way to calculate something and produce that result, unfortunately. All right, so
Maybe not in Google. I think you can do it in other stuff.
Well, Matthew says with Cognito Forms, you can do it.
Yeah, I think you can do it with Monday.com too.
I don't like Monday.com. I like Friday.com better. Fridays are way better than Mondays.
I'm glad
Okay.
I've never seen that third one down on the list there.
I forgot that was there. That was a little gag I played. But there actually is a homepage for that. I can show it to you if you want. It's kind of funny. Anyway, we're going to paste this long URL to create a Bitly link. But what you can do now is you can customize the back half. This is with a free Bitly account. If you got a paid Bitly account, you can do a branded Bitly link. But from what I saw, it's like very expensive to get that kind of setup with Bitly. They don't give you a price. You have to talk to somebody. And when I emailed with somebody, it was becoming clear to me that it was going to be way more money than it was worth to me to do it.
I
Tiffany,
don't think I pay for Bitly, and I have custom URLs.
You can customize this part in the free version, but if you wanted a Bitly link that's got like your domain or customized where the first part is
Or
customized,
that doesn't say Bitly.
exactly. Like I could create a custom Bitly URL that starts off nerd.ly or something / right? But that's where it gets expensive. But they also give you other very sophisticated tracking tools. It's really meant to be a marketing tool. But anyway, so I can change the second half of this, and let's just see if I can do client dash. I'm surprised at how many things are available, because you only get one shot at these, right? Once somebody takes it, it's taken. Let's see if I can get client dash intake. All right, so of course that's taken. I would have been very surprised if it wasn't. So I can put, let's say, nerd dash intake, right? Although that's going to be kind of a waste. So let's put a 2 after it, just in case, because if it is available, I want it. So nerd dash intake 2 is good. So I copy that back to my form here. Put that URL in, refresh, and just test it. Bam. Right? So you can use Bitly. It's just a little prettier, right? And you don't have this really long, ugly link, right? So I know that was a long way to go for a very small detail, but these little details matter, right? Right. Okay, good. Now, let's look at what I was just kind of referring to with Josh. If we go to the responses tab, over here is where I can tell it, let's create a spreadsheet. And notice there's an on-off switch. I can decide whether or not I'm accepting responses. I can turn this off if for some reason I don't want anybody filling out the form right now. And if somebody goes and tries to fill out the form, they won't be able to while this is off. Over here, I have some choices. So first, I can get email notifications for new responses. I can select if I have an existing Google Sheet where I want the responses to go, I can select it. And I can download responses in a CSV format, which I imagine will stick it right in my Google My Drive folder. Okay. And here I can delete all responses. So meanwhile, let's create the spreadsheet. Okay. We'll create a new spreadsheet and we'll call it My Clients Stuff. And create. And it's going to open up the new tab. And it's in Google Sheets. So like here, Josh, I was saying, I know this doesn't help you, but you know, if you wanted to, if you had data in here that you would want to perform calculations on, you just go outside the currently used columns for the responses, and you can write a formula that will perform any kind of, you know, calculation. For example, if I did full name, I could say concatenate. Oh, they added concat, which is just the short version. That was available in Excel only for a while. With a space and last name. So this way, I can copy that down. This way, whenever somebody submits an entry, it will combine their first and last name with a space in between to create their full name, right? So again, it's just another thing I can have there that I don't have to worry about like creating every time.
How do you find the Excel worksheet that it creates?
So
I'm doing something for a client satisfaction to do mathematical calculations on our net promoter score and other things. But I don't know where it's located right now.
So if you once you're in the document, you see this little guy here. If you hover your mouse over, it says move. But if you click on that, while it's giving the opportunity to move it, it also gives you this dialog launcher, which is to open up a folder in a new tab. So it'll open up that document's location in a new tab.
I'm still in the form and don't know how to get to the Excel file.
Wait, say that again?
I'm still in the form and I don't know how to get to the Excel file.
Oh, so you should go to responses and
Yep.
then click the little icon there.
Yep.
And when you click that icon, it should open up the responses sheet.
It doesn't.
Then they may not have set that up.
I have it set to create a new worksheet, but I don't know how to.
Yeah, so they haven't created one yet. Or it may be that if they're sharing the form with you, that it gives you the opportunity to create a different location. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played with it that deeply, in terms of having somebody share it with me.
Well, it's my form.
You're the owner of the form.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you just haven't created the sheet yet.
Oh,
That's all.
okay.
Once you create it, you can come into here, and this will show you. You can see already it's in My Drive, but this will actually open it up. Right, and then you can, from within here, you can organize it. You know, like I would probably move it over to like some kind of client or prospect folder, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so what else? So we've got. Let's start filling this out. Okay, Seth at Nerd. Okay. And you know you can just move through this with the tab key, right? And then so it's nice to break it up into sections like this too, where it says next. And there's also a setting where you can indicate to the person filling out the form, like it'll say, you know, like 2 of 3 or whatever, so they can get a sense. And it's a good thing to do, so that because you don't want them in the dark wondering, am I going to be stuck in this for an hour, right? So definitely do that setting, and I'll show you how to do that. I didn't put anything in contact info. Now over here we get to entity info, and here's where I had also put that link, right? But I didn't put the short one. So now if I do S Corp and I go next, it should take me to the shareholder information section. Over here, I left that one in there, but please list all your shareholders and percent of ownership. So I'd say Seth, David, 75%. My wife, 25%. Hey, I still have to have majority share, right? Send me a copy of my responses and submit.
There's no way to have that separated out, right? So that they're in different columns when they
No.
go into that spreadsheet. It's then
I
you have
looked
to.
this morning. Ideally, what I would have loved to have been able to do is have a question format where I can set up lines and say one column is for the name, the other column is for the percentage. I wish, but I tested that this morning before going live today to see if there was a way to do it, and there wasn't. So what's interesting here is now this drops in, but I was wondering if it would just kind of copy the information, and it doesn't like my formula for some reason. Let's try this again. Concatenate that, comma, that. That works. So anyway, so now you see how the formula works, but it takes a little bit of finagling, I guess. Now what I'm wondering really is if I add another entry, if it'll automatically copy the formula down, but I don't think it will. I think you have to copy it down. Courtney says, I thought it would create the sheet automatically too. It used to, but I think the reason it doesn't now is because they give you choices, because you can have it just kind of come out in a document kind of format, right?
Yeah, that's not the document format, because I do use this for my tax clients, just like as a the questionnaire, like the tax questionnaire that I have to ask certain questions every year.
Yeah.
And I do go ahead and print it like in the form instead of pulling it into a spreadsheet. That just works better to have it as a PDF document.
It's a lot prettier as a document, but then it's a lot more functional in this format,
as a sheet,
right? Because again, here, once it's here, now I can go into Zapier and I can create a Zap that says anytime there's a new response in here, and I think we all are familiar enough with Zapier to know what I'm talking about here, but I can grab this, I can go create a new customer in QuickBooks Online, right? Presumably by then we'd have a company name in here somewhere and so on. And I can go set up the customer in QBO, and I can go set up, a Smartsheet workspace and title it based on the information that's been provided. This actually came in pretty nice, right? It's better than I expected, actually. I thought they would both end up being on the same line, but it does seem to have accounted for the carriage return, right? Where I put her name on a different line. So it's interesting. And then, of course, when you go into a tool like Zapier, you can parse this, right? But you have to say, all right, after the second space, I have to assume I'm past the last name, and then I can say take whatever appears after that and put it in a new field and call it percentage, right? But it's not totally reliable, because if somebody has a middle name that they give, then that's going to screw up that plan, right? So it's not ideal. What you might do to improve upon that is create in that section, where did it go? Instead of doing it this way, you might have them answer one and put it clear in the instructions. One question for the name, another question for the percentage of ownership, right? And then let them go back and repeat that as many times as they need to. So the only thing is, I don't know about how to get it to let them go back and repeat just that one question. There's really not a way. So maybe you'd create space for like 5 shareholders and just say, and not make them required, so they can fill in just the ones that they need, right? And then you can put a little note that says, if it's more than 5, we'll get in touch, right? If you have more than 5 shareholders, you can't be a client. Sorry, we don't take companies with more than 5 shareholders. Too hard to fill out the form.
Or you could name each question shareholder 1 and shareholder 1 percentage, shareholder 2.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep, and make space for however many you need. I mean, I'm trying to think what the most shareholders I've ever had in a single client were, and I can't think of anywhere there were more than maybe 3, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 4. We're dealing mostly even with corporations or small corporations, right? If you're dealing with a public company, then you're probably not going to be using Google Forms anyway for anything, right? If you're dealing with a company that's got like hundreds and hundreds of shareholders. So I think we're covered. If you allow space for up to 5, that should be more than enough in most cases, and it's easy enough to expand it to 10 or whatever you need, right? So, I mean, I think that covers it. It's, again, I don't have time in an hour to dive too deep into this, but hopefully this gives you some things to think about and sparks some ideas. And I'd love to hear from people now along those lines, whoever's with us here. I'd love to hear.
I made a customer satisfaction survey that I send out after each engagement.
Mm-hmm.
That way we can track how people feel about us. And it just started it, so I'm hoping that we can kind of catch things that are happening. People can input it anonymously. That way
Okay, so you don't collect emails for those, or do
No.
you?
No, I want it to be anonymous, so it's honest feedback,
Right.
and it's a really quick, short survey. And there's like 3 different things, like a net promoter score or customer satisfaction. And that way they can just answer it really quick, put any comments in, and that way we can go, okay, well, someone wasn't happy about something, we don't know who it is. That way they'll be honest. And then we can kind of give ourselves a rank in each of the categories. So
That's awesome. Yeah. Who else? Anybody not using this before that now thinks they may want to use it? Have I converted anyone to Googleism? All right, let's look at the peanut gallery here. Nope, it's all Matthew filled up the whole feed on the live Facebook feed. He says with Bitly, the capitalization makes a difference. So if you put capitals in those, the customized part of the URL, I guess that you can do variations on it that way. So if somebody's taking the one with all lowercase, you can take the all caps one. So then it looks like you're yelling at people in your URL.
He also mentioned that there's often in AppSumo, there's other ones that do that shortening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, if you Google link shortener, there's a million services that do it. Bitly's probably just the most popular one. Right.
Yeah.
Bitly's like the Coca-Cola of link shortening or something.
But then everybody knows that, right? As soon as you see Bitly, you're like, uh-oh, they're tracking me. Forget it. I'm not answering.
Or they think, okay, Bitly's trusted, right? If they see some other weird thing, right? Maybe they trust it less.
Maybe.
Katrina says, I'm already a Googleite. Googleites. I like that. We're Googleites. Hey, so what else? We have 5 minutes left. Who's self-quarantining, self-isolating? Tiffany, how's it going in Canada there with the whole corona thing? Are there a lot of reported cases?
No, not yet.
Your
But
first
people
lady
are.
has it.
What's that?
Your first lady has it.
Yes, our first lady does have it. But yeah, they're just super careful anyway. The prime minister, announced a $1 billion funding towards like testing and support. They also announced, because we have a lot of hourly employees, that don't get paid if they don't work. So he's now announced that there will be a 0 wait period for anybody who has to be released from work in order to take care of themselves, which is awesome because it used to be a 1 week wait period before there was employment insurance repayments. Now it's 0 wait time.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Yeah.
I believe they've done that in the US too, actually.
They're starting to do, I've noticed a bunch of things that it looks like they're starting to do in the US, like subsidies for payroll and, to help employers so employers can keep paying employees even if they have to kind of close down or, and a lot of, somebody I think pointed out on Facebook yesterday that Zoom is discounted now so that people can work from home more easily and more affordably. There's a lot of companies that are really jumping in to help out, which is great. Like I was wondering when they announced yesterday that Disney's closing the whole theme park.
Yeah.
There's a lot of employees there that aren't going to be able to work who probably go check to check and really can't afford to be without a paycheck. So I'm assuming the kind of company that Disney is, that they're going to take good care of their people. I get the impression that it is that kind of company, and I certainly hope that that is the case, that they'll take care of people. And as I was pointing out before the hour started, for a lot of us who are sitting here, we have an opportunity we can really help people because most of us sitting here have been working remotely for a really long time, which is why I decided to slip into my Bulletproof Bookkeeping schedule a series that I'm going to start doing on, tools for working remotely, where, and keep in mind the target audience for this is not necessarily ourselves because we all already know this, right? Which is why I put something about it on my personal Facebook page, because there's a lot of people who are employees who are going to need this help. And they maybe need to pass it along to their employers, to say, hey, if I'm going to be working from home, there's this woman, Tiffany Stewart, who's got some great information on how to work remotely from home. It's just, we're in a good place to be able to be very helpful to people in this way. Bandura says Disney is paying their employees through the end of the month. Good. And hopefully that's enough time to where they can, start getting this situation turned around, right? So it seems like everybody's thinking a couple weeks out. It's as far as people seem to be going with this, because I guess we're hoping that there's going to be some kind of a solution on the horizon, maybe just barely more than 2 weeks out. We hope, but that's awesome. That's like I said, I would expect that Disney is that kind of a responsible company. And it's interesting. I saw something that it made me smile in a good way, because there was somebody on Twitter I noticed last night who posted, basically it was like a message, to the companies who are now price gouging people and taking advantage of this and charging ridiculous amounts of money for water and paper towels and toilet paper. She said, people will remember, right? And they will. People will remember who took advantage and who tried to capitalize on this. In other words, where the really small-minded people are out there and small-minded companies are out there, and we'll remember and we'll boycott you. That's my message to those companies. I loved what I saw when I saw that on Twitter, because we will. We have social media. There's a clear record of all of it, so we'll know. It's not like you're going to be able to hide after all this blows over. It's like, oh, it wasn't me, It's out there. We'll know, and we'll know who not to buy from, when the prices go back down. So, and keep that in mind too. Keep your eyes out for that kind of thing. We don't want to support companies like that. We want to support companies like Disney who take good care of their people. Let's see. Brandon acknowledges that that's awesome about Disney. And he says, we're planning a Disney trip for the first part of next month. Yeah, you may want to hold off on that, because they just announced yesterday they're closing. I think they're open through the weekend. They're closing starting Monday or something like that, from what I remember seeing.
I have a cruise in a month and a half that we're watching every day, but we're still planning on it at this point.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, at this point, and I was originally, and for a while, of the mindset that it's being blown out of proportion. I'm still going to go places and do things, and up until maybe a couple of days ago, I was, but now that's changed just with everything I'm seeing. And also at the request of my wife, I'm not going anywhere. I'm supposed to actually speak at a 12-step meeting on Sunday. I'm going to cancel it. And it's interesting being in that world, that they're making announcements at meetings like, please respect it if somebody doesn't want to hold hands at the end of the meeting, and, that kind of thing. And it's crazy. It's scary, but it's the reality of it. And it's, at the end of the day, I thought about it and I said, even if I still thought it was being blown out of proportion, it's still better safe than sorry. I was talking to somebody last night and I asked, this is somebody whose opinion I respect on these things. And I said, is this being blown out of proportion? Am I crazy? And he says, nope. He says, they're erring on the side of caution. He said, this is what Italy didn't do, which is why they're in the predicament that they're in now. Right? Yeah. Is they didn't take it seriously, and now the whole country is shut down, unfortunately.
I mean, look at China. China took it super serious, and look how their short lifespan was on the spread of it. If you look at the graphs of it with the different countries, you can see that China is almost flat, whereas the rest of us are, projecting up on how quickly it's spreading.
Yeah.
It's really strange. I went to the market last night to get some bottled water for my coffee maker. Mm-hmm. Shelves were empty. Yeah, totally empty.
Yeah, and
the price had gone up a little bit too.
More than a little. I bought a 24-count toilet paper thing for like $30 last night. It's being delivered tonight, right? It's ridiculous. But that's been created by. I'm going to be honest here, and I'm sorry if anybody's offended when I say this, but that was created by idiots who went out there and panicked. And first of all, if you're going to stock up, the toilet paper thing is totally irrational. If there's something you're going to stock up on soap, water, batteries in case for
alcohol,
some reason we lose power.
Rubbing alcohol.
In fact, my wife learned online this morning that you can make your own antibacterial with alcohol and aloe vera.
Yeah. And you don't even need the aloe vera part. Just anything that has a 60+ proof is fine.
Right. There's a lot. I stocked up on batteries because if, God forbid, everything really goes haywire and the utility company's employees can't go to work and we lose power, I'm like, I bought batteries. hang on one second. I'll be right back with you.
Just a little report from Italy right now in Florence. Everybody's going out on their balconies and banging their pots and pans to let everybody know that there are people out there in the world, since they're all isolated in their apartments.
Okay.
Someone on Facebook shared a video. I haven't looked at it yet, but apparently families are singing across the courtyards and everything between their houses because they can't go out, which is supposed to be hauntingly beautiful.
So my wife came over to clarify. It's to make your own hand sanitizer. It's 3 parts alcohol, 1 part aloe vera gel. And you can make your own, but you know.
And vodka isn't strong enough. It's 40 proof. And it needs to be 60.
All right, so you'll just have to drink it instead.
Exactly. Works
Worst
that
case
way.
scenario.
If you drink enough of it, you'll forget about all this.
I think
How it's
Tito's came out to say that that's not true. You can't use it for infection.
Right. Oh, and so now that there's this was my thing. I posted this on Twitter last night. Now that all the toilet paper's off the shelves, those of us who weren't able to get in on that, you probably want to stock up on some Imodium, so you won't need toilet paper. But it's crazy. There's a lot of better things. So, and going back to the water thing, I'd always thought about getting this, but now there's a really good reason to. We ordered a Brita water filter so that as long as we have running water, we can make our own drinking water, right?
You can't drink your water?
I mean, I haven't drank tap water in a really long time. I mean, and we have relatively clean water here in Burbank, but still it's all treated, right? So I only ever drink bottled water, you know.
You can't drink LA water. It tastes awful.
Burbank is known for being pretty clean, but still it's all treated. Like I would never drink tap water anywhere in this day and age. Haven't in years.
Well, of course it's treated. You're treating the water by putting it through a Brita.
Yeah, but it's not. I'm talking about it's treated with chemicals, though. They treat tap water with chemicals to clean it out, which I get. It's needed, but I would never drink tap water unless I had to. I guess I did not think I was so alone in this, but I can't remember the last time.
Yeah, exactly. First world problems, Joshua.
Yep. So I guess, I mean, do you all drink tap water normally?
Absolutely.
Really?
No, I only
never
drink
did.
filtered.
Only if I'm in the mountains of California, because like they have really good. Some of the small mountain towns in California have such good tap water.
Mm.
Anywhere else, lower in California, I'm not drinking the water.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I drank tap water.
Wow.
Matthew says get a life straw. And Matthew says, I blame The Walking Dead for misinformation. That's the thing. It sort of feels like we're preparing for the zombie apocalypse here. The best part of waking up is chlorine in your cup. There you go.
Come on. But it's fluorinated as well, and that's necessary because people don't have enough fluoride in their diet.
It's in my toothpaste.
It's not enough.
Not enough.
I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, but I read fluoride can cause dementia in later years.
Yeah, I've heard something.
Everything does.
I don't know. I guess I'm probably fluorine deficient, and as far as I can tell, I'm still okay.
If I get dementia, it won't be my problem anyway. So
Katrina says, don't trust the mountain tap water. Anyway, on that note, it's time to go. It's time to say goodbye. Next week, we'll have another spectacular Zoom subject. I have no idea what it is. I have to check the schedule. I don't think it's even been scheduled yet. So just check back on new.nerdenterprises.com and go to the events page, and you'll find out soon enough. I'll probably have it up in the next day or two. In the meantime, stay home, self-isolate, live long and prosper, and all that good stuff.
Stay in the bunker.
Stay in the bunker. Actually, real quick, since you mentioned it, Larry, if you Google like underground bunkers and stuff, there's some really interesting stuff on YouTube about these, and some of them can get up to like $5 million in cost, and they're nicer than probably any of our homes here.
Wow.
You can even drive your cars underground to get into them and lock it. It's really interesting. A lot of them built by these like ex-paramilitary people. It's there's like a whole subculture around this stuff. Just if you have some extra time this weekend, search for that on YouTube. It's fascinating. And on that note, I'm going to bid you all farewell and have a great weekend. And I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. And I hope to see you all really soon around the web.
Bye.